Security guard handcuffs Black woman at elite art gala. But when her true identity is revealed, the entire gallery is left stunned. The Rothwell Gallery stood like a pristine ivory castle in the heart of downtown, its modernist architecture a stark contrast to the surrounding brownstones. On this particular Friday evening, the gallery hummed with the quiet excitement of its annual charity gala. The who's who of the city's elite milled about, their murmured conversations punctuated by the gentle clink of champagne flutes. Samuel Thorne adjusted his security uniform for the umpteenth time, tugging at the collar that felt increasingly restrictive as the night wore on. At 62, he was no stranger to long shifts. Something about tonight had him on edge. Perhaps it was the glittering array of million-dollar artworks adorning the walls, or maybe it was the parade of unfamiliar faces streaming through the doors. "You all right there, Sam?" voice called out. It was Marjorie, one of the event coordinators, her silvery hair gleaming under the gallery lights. Sam offered a tight smile. "Just fine, Miss Holloway. Keeping an eye out as always." Marjorie patted his arm. "You're doing a wonderful job as usual. Try to relax a little, will you? It's a party after all." As she moved away to greet a group of new arrivals, Sam's gaze swept across the main hall. The space was a symphony of white walls and polished marble floors, interrupted only by the vibrant splashes of color from the artworks and the guests' designer outfits. His attention was drawn to a woman who had just entered. She stood out immediately, not because of any ostentatious behavior, but because of the quiet confidence with which she carried herself. Her dark skin contrasted beautifully with a crisp white pantsuit, and her natural hair was styled in an elegant updo. She moved through the crowd with purpose, pausing occasionally to study a painting or sculpture. Sam frowned. Something about her didn't sit right with him. Unlike the other guests who moved in pairs or groups, chattering and laughing, this woman was alone and eerily focused. He watched as she approached one of the most valuable pieces in the exhibition, a small but exquisite Monet that the gallery had acquired just last month. As the woman leaned in close to examine the painting, Sam's unease grew. He'd been in this job long enough to trust his instincts, and right now they were screaming at him that something was amiss. With a determined stride, he made his way across the room. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said, his voice gruff with tension. "I'm going to have to ask you to step away from the artwork." The woman turned, her eyebrows raised in surprise. "I'm sorry?" she said, her voice calm and measured. "You heard me," Sam replied, puffing out his chest slightly. "I need you to move away from the painting and come with me." A small crowd had begun to gather, curious onlookers drawn by the confrontation. The woman's eyes darted around, taking in the situation. "Sir, I believe there's been a misunderstanding," she began, but Sam cut her off. "No misunderstanding, ma'am. I've been watching you, and your behavior is suspicious. Now, are you going to come quietly, or do I need to call for backup?" A flash of anger crossed the woman's face, quickly replaced by a carefully neutral expression. "Very well," she said, her voice tight. "Lead the way." As Sam escorted her towards the security office, whispers rippled through the crowd. He could feel the weight of their stares, but he pushed the discomfort aside. He was doing his job, protecting the gallery and its precious content. That's what mattered. The security office was a small, windowless room tucked away at the back of the gallery. Sam ushered the woman inside and closed the door behind them. The space was dominated by a bank of monitors showing feeds from the gallery's numerous security cameras. "Sit down, please," Sam said, gesturing to a chair. The woman complied, her posture rigid and her gaze steely. "Now," Sam began, settling into the chair behind the desk, "I'm going to need to see some identification." The woman reached into her clutch and produced a sleek wallet. She handed over a driver's license, which Sam scrutinized closely. "Dr. Amara Richardson," he read aloud. He looked up at her skeptically. "And what exactly is your purpose here tonight, Dr. Richardson?" Amara's jaw tightened. "As I tried to explain earlier, I'm here as a guest. I received an invitation to this event." Sam leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing. "An invitation? And who exactly invited you?" "The gallery did," Amara replied, her patience clearly wearing thin. "I'm an art historian specializing in Impressionist work. The gallery reached out to me specifically because of the new Monet acquisition." Sam's frown deepened. This wasn't what he had expected to hear. He was about to press further when a sharp knock at the door interrupted them. "Sam, are you in there?" It was Marjorie's voice, tinged with concern. Before Sam could respond, the door swung open. Marjorie bustled in, followed by a tall, distinguished-looking man in an impeccably tailored suit. "Oh, thank goodness," Marjorie said, her relief palpable. "Dr. Richardson, I'm so sorry for this misunderstanding. Are you all right?" Amara stood, smoothing out her pantsuit. "I'm fine, Miss Holloway, thank you. Just a bit shaken." The man in the suit stepped forward, extending his hand to Amara. "Dr. Richardson, I can't apologize enough for this incident. I'm Jonathan Rothwell, the gallery owner. We've been so looking forward to your visit." Sam felt the blood drain from his face as the realization of his mistake began to sink in. He watched, speechless, as Jonathan continued. "Your insights on our new Monet are invaluable to us. I hope this unfortunate event won't color your perception of our gallery." Amara accepted Jonathan's handshake, her composure fully restored. "These things happen, Mr. Rothwell. I appreciate your concern." As the group turned to leave, Marjorie shot Sam a look that was equal parts disappointment and frustration. "We'll discuss this later," she said quietly before ushering Amara and Jonathan out of the office. Left alone, Sam slumped in his chair, his mind reeling. How had he gotten it so wrong? He'd been so sure, so convinced of his assessment. Now, sitting in the harsh fluorescent light of the security office, doubt began to creep in. Had he really been protecting the gallery, or had he let his own biases cloud his judgment? The question gnawed at him, threatening to unravel everything he thought he knew about himself and his abilities. As the sounds of the gala filtered through the closed door, Sam realized that this night was far from over. The consequences of his actions were yet to unfold, and he had a sinking feeling that his world was about to be turned upside down. The following Monday morning dawned gray and drizzly, matching Sam's mood perfectly as he trudged into the Rothwell Gallery. The weekend had passed in a blur of self-recrimination and anxiety. He'd barely slept, replaying Friday night's events over and over in his mind, each time finding new reasons to berate himself for his action. As he entered the staff room to clock in, the usual morning chatter died down. Colleagues avoided eye contact, busying themselves with their lockers or suddenly finding their coffee cups fascinating. Sam felt the weight of their judgment like a physical presence. "Sam, a word, please." He turned to see Marjorie standing in the doorway, her expression unreadable. With a heavy heart, Sam followed her to her office, acutely aware of the whispers that broke out behind him. Marjorie's office was a stark contrast to the minimalist gallery spaces. Warm colors and comfortable furnishings created a welcoming atmosphere. Today it felt oppressive to Sam. He lowered himself into a chair across from Marjorie's desk, bracing for what was to come. "Sam," Marjorie began, her voice gentle but firm, "we need to discuss what happened on Friday night." He nodded, unable to meet her eyes. "I know I messed up, Marjorie. I'm sorry." She sighed, leaning back in her chair. "Sorry doesn't quite cover it, I'm afraid. Do you understand the gravity of what occurred? Dr. Richardson is not just any guest. She's a world-renowned expert in her field, someone we've been trying to build a relationship with for months." Sam's stomach churned. He hadn't realized the full extent of his mistake. Marjorie continued, "Moreover, your actions have opened us up to potential legal issues. Dr. Richardson would be well within her rights to file a complaint of racial profiling." "That wasn't my intention," Sam protested weakly, but Marjorie held up a hand to stop him. "Intention or not, Sam, that's how it looks. And in today's climate, we cannot afford even the appearance of such behavior." She paused, allowing her words to sink in. Sam felt as if the floor was crumbling beneath him. After a moment, Marjorie spoke again, her tone softer. "I've known you for a long time, Sam. You've been a valued member of our team for over a decade. That's why this is so disappointing." The words stung more than any angry tirade could have. Sam had always prided himself on his professionalism, his ability to keep the gallery and its patrons safe. Now, in one night, he'd managed to jeopardize all of that. "What happens now?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Marjorie pulled out a folder from her desk drawer. The gallery board met over the weekend to discuss the incident. Given the seriousness of the situation, they've decided that some action needs to be taken. Sam's heart sank. This was it. After all these years, he was about to be fired. However, Marjorie continued, in light of your long service and previously spotless record, we're not terminating your employment. A glimmer of hope sparked in Sam's chest, quickly tempered by wariness. There had to be a catch. Instead, Marjorie said, sliding the folder across the desk to him, you'll be required to take a leave of absence and complete a comprehensive sensitivity and diversity training program. Sam opened the folder, scanning the documents inside. The program looked intensive, covering everything from unconscious bias to cultural competency. The course runs for 6 weeks, Marjorie explained. During that time, you'll be on paid leave. Upon successful completion, we'll reassess your position here. Relief warred with humiliation in Sam's mind. It wasn't as bad as being fired outright, but the implication was clear. He needed to change, or there would be no place for him at the gallery. I understand, he managed to say. Marjorie's expression softened slightly. Sam, I hope you see this as an opportunity. The world is changing, and we need to change with it. This isn't about punishment. It's about growth. Sam nodded, not trusting himself to speak. He gathered the folder and stood to leave, feeling every one of his 62 years weighing heavily on his shoulders. As he reached the door, Marjorie called out, "Oh, and Sam? Dr. Richardson will be giving a lecture here next month. I think it would be beneficial for you to attend." The idea of facing Dr. Richardson again made Sam's insides twist. He knew he was in no position to argue. He gave a curt nod and left the office, his mind already racing with the implications of what lay ahead. The next 6 weeks passed in a whirlwind of seminars, workshops, and soul-searching for Sam. The training program was eye-opening, challenging many of the assumptions he'd held for most of his life. He learned about the insidious nature of unconscious bias, the historical context of racial profiling, and the importance of creating inclusive spaces. At first, Sam had approached the training with reluctance, viewing it as a necessary evil to keep his job. But as the weeks went by, he found himself genuinely engaged, often staying late to discuss concepts with the instructors or his fellow trainees. One particularly impactful session focused on personal stories. Participants were encouraged to share experiences of discrimination they had faced. Sam, being one of the few white attendees, initially felt out of place. But as he listened to his classmates' stories, tales of being followed in stores, overlooked promotions, or subjected to random security checks, he began to understand the weight of his actions that night at the gallery. It was during this session that Sam first spoke about his own background. He told the group about growing up in a predominantly white working-class neighborhood, where suspicion of outsiders was the norm. He talked about his father, a factory worker who lost his job to automation and blamed immigrants for his misfortune. Sam realized, perhaps for the first time, how deeply these early experiences had shaped his worldview. But that's no excuse, he concluded, voice thick with emotion. I'm responsible for my own actions, and I need to do better. The supportive nods and murmurs from his classmates meant more to him than he could express. As the training program neared its end, Sam felt like a different person. The anger and defensiveness he'd initially felt had given way to a sense of purpose. He was determined to take what he'd learned and apply it not just to his work, but to every aspect of his life. On the final day of the program, the facilitator asked each participant to share one key takeaway. When it was Sam's turn, he stood, took a deep breath, and said, I've learned that security isn't just about protecting things. It's about creating an environment where everyone feels safe and respected. And that starts with challenging our own assumptions. Words felt right as he said them, a testament to how far he'd come. As Sam prepared to return to work, he couldn't help but feel a mixture of excitement and trepidation. He was eager to put his new knowledge into practice. But he also knew that rebuilding trust with his colleagues and the gallery patrons would take time. The night before his first shift back, Sam stood in front of his bathroom mirror, adjusting his freshly pressed uniform. The face that looked back at him was the same one he'd always known, lined with age and experience. But behind his eyes, there was a new understanding, a commitment to see the world and the people in it with fresh eyes. You've got this, old man, he told his reflection. Time to do better. With that, He turned off the light and headed to bed, ready to face whatever challenges the new day might bring. The familiar weight of the security badge felt different somehow. Sam clipped it to his uniform on his first day back at the Rothwell Gallery. He stood straighter, more aware of his presence and the impact it could have on others. The morning air was crisp with early autumn chill as he approached the gallery's staff entrance, steeling himself for whatever reception awaited him. To his surprise, Marjorie was there to greet him, a warm smile on her face. "Welcome back, Sam," she said, extending her hand. "How are you feeling?" Sam shook her hand, grateful for the friendly gesture. "Nervous, to be honest," he admitted, "but ready to do better." Marjorie nodded approvingly. "That's exactly what we want to hear. Now, let's get you settled in. There have been a few changes while you were away." As they walked through the gallery, Sam noticed subtle differences. New signs in multiple languages welcomed visitors, and he spotted a more diverse group of docents preparing for the day's tours. In the staff room, a large calendar on the wall highlighted various cultural holidays and observances. "We've been implementing some changes of our own," Marjorie explained, noticing Sam's observations. "Your situation made us realize we needed to do more to create an inclusive environment for everyone, staff and visitors alike." Sam felt a mix of emotions at this. On one hand, he was glad to see positive changes coming from the incident. On the other, it was a stark reminder of his mistake. "I'm glad to see it," he said sincerely. As the day progressed, Sam found himself hyper-aware of his interactions. He greeted each visitor with a warm smile, paying extra attention to ensure he wasn't making anyone uncomfortable with his presence. His colleagues, initially cautious, began to relax around him as they saw his genuine efforts to apply what he had learned. It was near the end of his shift when Sam faced his first real test. A group of teenagers, loud and exuberant, entered the gallery. In the past, Sam might have immediately viewed them with suspicion, especially the few wearing hoodies and baggy jeans. Instead, he approached them with a friendly demeanor. "Welcome to the Rothwell Gallery," he said, smiling. "First time here?" The teens looked surprised at his greeting. A young girl with vibrant blue braids spoke up. "Yeah, it's for a school project. We're supposed to write about our favorite piece." Sam nodded encouragingly. "That sounds like a great project. You know, we have some amazing new acquisitions in the modern art wing that might interest you. Would you like me to show you where they are?" The teenagers exchanged glances, then nodded enthusiastically. As Sam led them through the gallery, pointing out various pieces and sharing interesting facts, he felt a sense of fulfillment he hadn't experienced in years. He wasn't just guarding art. He was helping to make it accessible and enjoyable for everyone. After the teens left, thanking Sam profusely for his help, thought Marjorie watching him with an approving smile. "Nice work," she said as she passed by. The next few weeks saw Sam settling into his new approach. He found himself engaging more with visitors, learning about their interests and background. He started picking up phrases in different languages to make international visitors feel more welcome. The gallery began to feel less like a space he was guarding and more like a community he was nurturing. However, Sam knew the real test was yet to come. Dr. Amara Richardson's lecture was approaching, and the thought of facing her again filled him with apprehension. The night before the event, he barely slept, rehearsing what he might say if he got the chance to apologize properly. The day of the lecture arrived, and the gallery was buzzing with excitement. Sam was stationed near the entrance, his heart pounding as he watched the attendees arrive. And then there she was, Dr. Richardson, looking every bit as poised and elegant as she had on that fateful night. As she approached the entrance, their eyes met. Sam saw a flicker of recognition cross her face, followed by a guarded expression. Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward. "Good evening, Dr. Richardson," he said, his voice steady despite his nerves. "Welcome to the Rothwell Gallery." Dr. Richardson paused, studying him intently. "Good evening," she replied, her tone neutral. Sam knew this was his moment. "Dr. Richardson, I owe you an apology," he began. "My behavior during your last visit was inexcusable. I've spent the last few months learning and growing, and I want you to know how deeply sorry I am for the way I treated you." For a moment, Dr. Richardson said nothing, and Sam felt the weight of her scrutiny. Then, to his surprise, Her expression softened slightly. "Thank you for your apology, Mr. Thorne," Sam supplied. "Sam Thorne." Dr. Richardson nodded. "Mr. Thorne, I appreciate your words and the effort you've made. It takes courage to admit one's mistakes and work to correct them." Sam felt a wave of relief wash over him. "Thank you for your understanding, Dr. Richardson. I hope you'll enjoy your lecture tonight. We're all looking forward to it." As Dr. Richardson moved past him into the gallery, Sam caught Marjorie's eye across the room. She gave him a subtle thumbs up, and he felt a small surge of pride. It was a small step, but an important one. The lecture hall filled quickly, and Sam found a spot at the back where he could observe without being intrusive. As Dr. Richardson took the stage, a hush fell over the audience. Sam leaned forward, eager to learn. "Good evening," Dr. Richardson began, her voice clear and confident. "Tonight, I'd like to talk about the intersection of art, history, and identity. How the stories we tell through art shape our understanding of ourselves and others." As she spoke, Sam found himself captivated. Dr. Richardson wove together art history, personal anecdotes, and broader societal observations into a narrative that was both enlightening and deeply moving. She spoke about the importance of representation in art, the hidden histories behind famous works, and the role of galleries and museums in shaping cultural narratives. At one point, she paused, her gaze sweeping across the room. "Art has the power to challenge our preconceptions," she said, "to make us see the world, and each other, in new ways. But for that to happen, we must first be willing to look beyond our initial judgments and biases." Sam felt as if she were speaking directly to him. He thought about how his preconceptions had nearly cost the gallery this incredible lecture, how they had clouded his judgment, and led him to treat an accomplished professional with suspicion and disrespect. As the lecture concluded and the audience rose in a standing ovation, Sam remained seated, lost in thought. He realized that his journey was far from over. Training had been a start, but true change would require ongoing effort and self-reflection. When the crowd began to disperse, Sam noticed Dr. Richardson speaking with a small group near the stage. Gathering his courage, he approached, waiting patiently on the periphery until she was free. "Dr. Richardson," he said as she turned to him, "I just wanted to thank you for an incredible lecture. You've given me a lot to think about." He smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. "I'm glad you found it valuable, Mr. Thorne. Art has a way of opening doors we didn't even know were closed." Sam nodded, feeling a spark of connection. "I'm beginning to understand that, and I hope that someday I might have the chance to hear more of your insights." "Well," Dr. Richardson said, a hint of amusement in her voice, "I do plan to be back for the upcoming Impressionist exhibition. Perhaps we'll have the opportunity to discuss further then." As Sam watched her leave, he felt a sense of possibility he hadn't experienced in years. The gallery around him, with its priceless artworks and diverse visitors, suddenly seemed like more than just a workplace. It was a space of transformation, for the art, for the patrons, for Sam himself. He turned to begin his final rounds of the evening, his steps lighter, gaze more open. The journey ahead would not be easy, but for the first time in a long while, Sam Thorne felt truly secure in his purpose. Months passed, and the Rothwell Gallery buzzed with anticipation for the upcoming Impressionist exhibition. Sam found himself at the center of preparations, his role expanding beyond simple security. His newfound approach and willingness to engage with visitors had not gone unnoticed by the gallery management. One crisp morning, Marjorie called Sam into her office. "Sam," she began, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth, "I have a proposition for you." Sam leaned forward, curious. "What kind of proposition?" "We've been impressed with your growth over the past few months," Marjorie explained. "Your interactions with visitors, your dedication to creating a welcoming environment, it's exactly what we need for this exhibition." She paused, gauging his reaction before continuing. "We'd like you to take on a new role for the duration of the exhibition. In addition to your security duties, we want you to act as a kind of ambassador for the gallery." Sam's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "Ambassador? Me?" Marjorie nodded. "You have a way with people, Sam. You make them feel comfortable, and you've shown a real interest in the art. We think you'd be perfect to help guide VIP guests, answer questions, and generally enhance the visitor experience. For a moment, Sam was speechless. It was more responsibility than he'd had in years, and the thought both excited and terrified him. I don't know what to say, Marjorie. Are you sure? Absolutely, she replied firmly. You've earned this opportunity, Sam. Question is, are you ready to take it? Sam took a deep breath, thinking of how far he'd come since that fateful night with Dr. Richardson. He thought of the teenagers he'd guided, the conversations he'd had with visitors from all walks of life. Slowly, he nodded. Yes, he said, his voice growing stronger. Yes, I'm ready. The weeks leading up to the exhibition were a whirlwind of activity. Sam threw himself into preparations, studying the artwork that would be on display, practicing his public speaking, even working on his posture and appearance. He wanted to be the best possible representative for the gallery. The night before the exhibition's opening, Sam stood in front of his mirror at home, adjusting his new blazer. The gallery had provided him with a more formal uniform to match his new role. As he straightened his collar, he hardly recognized the man staring back at him. Gone was the stern, suspicious security guard. In his place stood a man with purpose, ready to share his passion for art with the world. Opening night arrived, and the gallery was transformed. Soft lighting highlighted the impressionist masterpieces, while the gentle notes of a string quartet filled the air. Sam took his position near the entrance, greeting guests with a warm smile and a wealth of knowledge about the exhibition. As the evening progressed, Sam found himself in conversation with art enthusiasts, collectors, and even a few celebrities. He discussed brush techniques with a fascinated group of art students, shared little-known facts about Monet with a curious couple, and even managed to make a stoic-looking businessman chuckle with an anecdote about Renoir. It was nearing the midpoint of the event when Sam saw her, Dr. Amara Richardson, resplendent in a deep blue gown, making her way through the crowd. Their eyes met, and Sam felt a moment of trepidation. But as Dr. Richardson approached, he saw a smile of recognition on her face. Mr. Thorne, she greeted him warmly. Good to see you again. Dr. Richardson, Sam replied, relieved at her friendly tone. Welcome back to the Rothwell. We're honored to have you here for this exhibition. Dr. Richardson's eyes twinkled with amusement. I see you've taken on a new role. It suits you. Sam felt a flush of pride. Thank you. I've been learning a lot. In fact, I was hoping I might be able to get your insights on a few of the pieces. I'd be delighted, Dr. Richardson replied. As they moved through the gallery, Sam found himself engaged in one of the most enlightening conversations of his life. Dr. Richardson's knowledge was vast, but what struck Sam most was her ability to connect the art to broader themes of human experience and social change. They paused in front of a lesser-known Monet, a street scene depicting a diverse group of Parisians. You see, Dr. Richardson explained, her voice low and passionate, Monet wasn't just capturing light and color here. He was documenting a changing society, showing us a world where people from different walks of life were beginning to coexist in new ways. Sam nodded, seeing the painting with new eyes. Like he's challenging the viewer to look beyond the surface, to see the humanity in each figure. Dr. Richardson turned to him, a look of pleasant surprise on her face. Exactly, Mr. Thorne. That's precisely it. As they continued their tour, Sam found himself sharing some of his own observation, insights he'd gained from months of studying and interacting with visitors. To his amazement, Dr. Richardson listened with genuine interest, even jotting down a note or two. You know, Mr. Thorne, she said as they completed their circuit of the gallery, you have a real gift for this. Your passion for the art and your ability to connect with people. Quite remarkable. Sam felt a warmth spread through his chest at her words. Thank you, Dr. Richardson. That means a lot coming from you. And please, call me Sam. She smiled. Then you must call me Amara. I have a feeling we'll be seeing more of each other at events like these. As Dr. Richardson, Amara, moved away to greet other guests, Sam felt a sense of accomplishment unlike anything he'd experienced in his career. He'd not only made amends for his past mistake, but had forged a new connection based on mutual respect and a shared love of art. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of introductions, discussions, and moments of quiet appreciation for the masterpieces surrounding them. As the last guests departed and the gallery staff began the process of closing up, Sam found himself standing alone in front of the Monet Street scene. He studied the figures in the painting. Wealthy gentlemen, working-class woman, children of various backgrounds, all coexisting on the same canvas. He thought about his own journey, how his world had expanded and become richer through his willingness to look beyond his initial judgment. Marjorie's voice broke into his reverie. "Quite a night, wasn't it, Sam?" Turned to her with a smile. "It really was. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, Marjorie. It's changed everything." He patted his shoulder affectionately. "You did that yourself, Sam. You were willing to learn and grow. That's all anyone can ask." As they walked towards the exit, Sam took one last look at the gallery, now quiet and dim. He realized that this space, which he had guarded for so many years, had become more than just his workplace. It was a place of transformation, a canvas on which he was painting a new chapter of his life. With a contented sigh, Sam switched off the lights and stepped out into the cool night air, ready to face whatever new challenges and opportunities tomorrow might bring. 5 years had passed since that transformative night at the Impressionist exhibition. Rothwell Gallery had flourished, becoming known not just for its impressive collection, but for its inclusive atmosphere and innovative community outreach program. At the center of many of these changes was Sam Thorne, whose role had evolved far beyond his original position as a security guard. On a warm spring morning, Sam stood in front of the gallery, watching as a group of excited elementary school children filed out of a yellow bus. 67, he moved a bit slower these days, but his eyes were bright, the same enthusiasm he'd discovered in himself years ago. "Good morning, everyone," he called out, his voice carrying over the children's chatter. "Welcome to the Rothwell Gallery. Who's ready for an art adventure?" A chorus of "me" rang out, bringing a wide smile to Sam's face. These school tours had become one of his favorite parts of the job. There was something magical about introducing young minds to the world of art, watching their eyes light up with wonder and curiosity. As Sam led the group into the gallery, he caught sight of his reflection in one of the glass display cases. His hair had gone completely silver now, and the lines on his face had deepened, but there was a vitality about him that hadn't been there in his younger years. He wore a badge that read, Sam Thorne, Community Outreach Coordinator, a title that still filled him with pride every time he saw it. Tour was a lively affair, with Sam encouraging the children to share their thoughts on each piece they encountered. He'd learned that sometimes the most profound insights came from the youngest observers. As they stood in front of a vibrant abstract painting, a small girl with pigtails raised her hand. "Yes, Lily?" Sam said, kneeling down to her level. "Mr. Sam," she began, her brow furrowed in concentration, "this painting makes me feel like I'm in a big city with lots of different people all mixed together. Is that okay?" Sam's heart swelled. "That's more than okay, Lily. That's exactly what art is supposed to do, make us feel and imagine. And you know what? I think you've captured exactly what the artist was trying to show us." As the tour concluded and the children gathered in the gallery's new education center for an art project, Sam felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned to find Marjorie, now the gallery's director, smiling at him. "You never cease to amaze me, Sam," she said warmly. "The way you connect with these kids, it's truly special." Sam shrugged modestly. "They make it easy. Their minds are so open, so ready to see the beauty in everything." Marjorie nodded, then her expression turned more serious. "Sam, there's something I need to discuss with you. Can you come to my office once you're done here?" Intrigued, Sam agreed. An hour later, after ensuring all the children were safely on their way back to school, he made his way to Marjorie's office. To his surprise, he found not just Marjorie waiting for him, but also Dr. Amara Richardson, who had become a frequent collaborator with the gallery over the years. "Sam, please have a seat," Marjorie said, gesturing to a chair. "We have an exciting proposition for you." Sam sat, looking curiously between the two women. "What's this about?" Dr. Richardson leaned forward, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "Sam, we've been working on a new initiative, and we believe you're the perfect person to spearhead it." Marjorie continued, "We want to start a mentorship program, connecting underprivileged youth with the art world. not just as observers, but as potential future artists, curators, and yes, even security personnel turned outreach coordinators. Sam felt a lump form in his throat. That sounds incredible, but why me? Dr. Richardson smiled warmly. Because you, Sam Thorne, are living proof of the transformative power of art and education. Your journey over these past few years is exactly the kind of story that could inspire these young people. We want you to be the program director. Marjorie added, you'll work with schools, community centers, and of course directly with the young people themselves. For a moment, Sam was speechless. He thought about his own journey, the mistakes he'd made, the lessons he'd learned. Thought about Lily and all the other children whose lives he'd touched through his work at the gallery. Finally, he thought about his younger self, the man who had stood guard at the gallery doors, never imagining the rich, fulfilling life that lay ahead of him. I'd be honored, he said at last, his voice thick with emotion. The next few months were a whirlwind of activity, as Sam threw himself into developing the mentorship program. He worked tirelessly, drawing on his years of experience and the network of connections he'd built in the art world. The program launched with 12 young participants, each paired with a mentor from various aspects of the art world. On the day of the program's inaugural event, Sam stood at the podium, looking out at the faces of the young participants, their families, and a room full of art world luminaries. He took a deep breath and began to speak. 5 years ago, I stood in this very gallery, not as a guide or a mentor, but as a man who had made a terrible mistake. I let my biases cloud my judgment, and in doing so, I nearly missed out on the incredible journey that brought me here today. He paused, making eye contact with Dr. Richardson in the audience, who gave him an encouraging nod. But thanks to the patience, understanding, and wisdom of others, I was given a second chance. I learned that art isn't just about pretty pictures on a wall. It's about seeing the world and each other with new eyes. It's about challenging our preconceptions and opening our hearts to new possibilities. Sam gestured to the young participant. That's what this program is all about. It's about opening doors, breaking down barriers, and showing these bright young minds that they belong in this world of art just as much as anyone else. As he concluded his speech to resounding applause, Sam felt a sense of completion. The journey that had begun with a moment of misjudgment had led him here, to a place where he could help ensure that others would have the opportunities he'd been given. Later that evening, as the event wound down, Sam found himself standing once again in front of the Monet street scene that had so captivated him years ago. Dr. Richardson joined him, a glass of champagne in her hand. You know, Amara, Sam said, using her first name as had become their custom, I never tire of looking at this painting. Every time I see it, I notice something new. She nodded, studying the canvas. That's the beauty of great art, Sam. It grows with us, revealing new facets of itself as we change and grow. Sam turned to her, a slow smile spreading across his face. I suppose the same could be said of people, couldn't it? Indeed it could, she replied, raising her glass in a toast. To new beginnings, old friends, and the endless possibilities of art. As they clinked glasses, Sam felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over him. He had started this journey as a man set in his ways, viewing the world in black and white. Now, he saw the infinite shades and colors that made up the masterpiece of life. In that moment, surrounded by the art he loved and the community he had helped build, Sam Thorne knew that his greatest work, his true masterpiece, was the legacy of understanding, growth, and opportunity he would leave behind.